Alright guys, HyDra again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. One of the big dramas of this roster mania so far has no doubt been the Subliners situation, dropping Priestahh after winning the World Championship. Priestahh has finally come out after recently joining Boston with his side of the story, saying there was no real communication there internally. The contract issues would have been resolved. The team then decided to drop him for seemingly unspecified reasons. We're going to dive into all the details today, and this definitely will not quell the concerns of those that are going to prey on the Subliners' downfall as a result of this whole saga next season. Very much enjoyed to hear your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. First of all, Scump playing some Overwatch here, and actually the OWL, if it's even going to exist going forwards, says we shall be in touch. But speaking of Scump, he also did comment on this on stream last night, which was the comment on the new slide cancelling. So slide cancelling has been gone from this year's title. It's been in the game for some time, really, especially, you know, Cold War, Modern Warfare 19, Vanguard, slide cancelling a common feature, and players like Crim6 said that there's certain players that are only good because of slide cancelling, and there's a debate as to whether it's actually a good or bad feature to have in Call of Duty titles, despite the fact that the engine that the games run on is going to be very similar for years to come. There are many features within the game that can be changed, especially movement ones, and that is seemingly what Sledgehammer Games are looking to do. The current rumour is that slide cancelling will be returning. The current Warzone map in the upcoming Modern Warfare 3 title looks amazing apparently, and slide cancelling is in the current build. Was also in last year's game but removed. So this is pretty interesting, and I do wonder what the pros will think about this, because we remember that Dashy did a tweet on this a few days ago that basically said, yeah, I'll be waiting for jetpacks and or slide cancelling to make their return, and apparently slide cancelling will be back. Scump didn't seem so happy about this on stream. He slams the desk here and says, like, come on, as if to say, like, you know, come on, why are they bringing this back type thing. But still, some pros will be happy about this, some I imagine will not be, but slide cancelling returning to the upcoming Call of Duty, I don't mind really at all, as long as there's red dots on the minimap and there's dead silence. If they could do those two things with some better maps, hopefully some throwback maps from the original Modern Warfare 2 or 3, either is fine at this point, given the amount of maps we have been delivered over the last few years that haven't really lived up to expectations. But yeah, I'm sure there'll be many different opinions on this if there are further rumours to that extent. Speaking of Boston as well, I did want to quickly mention that Methods did confirm on stream the other day what we believed to be the case, but I'm not sure it ever been strictly confirmed going into this season in Modern Warfare 2, when they had to decide, Boston, between either getting Priestahh or bringing Methods back. That was the contemplation they had. Methods eventually retained by Boston and then retired a couple of months in, and you know, he retired in a good fashion in front of the Boston home crowd. It was all good. Maybe there's part of Boston management that thinks, you know what, given that Zinni was going to retire, okay, well, he wasn't going to retire, but because Scump retired, he wanted to retire, join OpTic. It made sense for both parties. Maybe Boston think, looking back, they could have chosen Clay, and I think they might have done, but Clay went through some personal stuff and the negotiations kind of slowed, and therefore they went for Methods instead. Clay ended up joining Vegas, but Methods did confirm that that at least was the discussion. They ended up choosing Zinni, and the rest is history from there. Where does Clay go though? Especially because earlier today we said that accuracy to Rokkr is probably going to happen. We don't think Clay's going to Thieves, as we understand. Maybe Surge, but outside of that, you're then left with, you know, the teams down at the bottom, the Floridas, the Gorillas, the Londons, the Vegases. So, you know, we'll see where Clay lands. Hopefully he gets a better team than that, but they're running out of options down there right now. Also, we were wondering, like, when is this OpTic Texas thing going to be confirmed? Pred, I believe, is back in the States as of today. So, and I know that Scump and that have been implying on stream that there are some announcement videos getting recorded. Definitely involving Pred. Whether they're involving Kenny as well, we think that they are. So this is probably only a few days away from confirmation. OpTic do tend to drag these things out longer than you might feel like is necessary, but, you know, within the next few days, I'd expect OpTic to finally confirm what they're up to, and they've probably got many ideas to exactly how they want to make this work from a content perspective. There have been a few confirmations. We only know 2 rosters. I'm going to try and keep updated in the description box of the videos exactly what's going on. I'm going to put like ticks next to the teams that have been confirmed, and FaZe and Ultra have, I don't think Toronto have tweeted that their team is going to be Scrappy, CleanX, Insight, Envoy, but they know that Envoy is going to be there, and it's been heavily implied by those other 3 players that they will be returning, so it's going to be minus Hixie plus Envoy for next season. Same with FaZe, they confirmed Drazah, they haven't confirmed Simp, aBeZy, Cell, but I think we can work that out for ourselves, to be honest. So I think those 2 are the teams that we know, but outside of that, it's a little bit more unclear. Even the Subliners, as of now, haven't confirmed their new man yet, but we do know the man that's gone, and he's already joined Boston. That being Priestahh, feels hard done by, and understandably so, as a result of all this drama with the Subliners, and it's very interesting to look back on, because last off-season, we had the Crim6 versus HyDra and Drill, and all this saga went down on the flank, and, you know, the discussion was that they were kind of internally, it wasn't the best environment. Crim6 was basically accusing Drill of protecting HyDra, or, like, you know, prioritizing him above the team, and, you know, now you look at the Subliner situation that's gone on over the last couple of weeks, and there's been some accusations to exactly what is going on internally at New York, because for all of this great culture they talk about, didn't really seem to come across when it came to making these changes. And it's not exactly a rare thing in COD history that a player gets dropped and feels hard done by as the way they've been treated, and maybe some of the players, if this wasn't esports, would have maybe made things clearer or spoken to Priestahh or those players in person, but you know, it doesn't usually happen like that in the esports realm, and players get left in the dark. So Priestahh explains what happened here. There's a couple of very interesting clips from the Scrappy episode. Of course, I'll leave the entire thing linked down below for you guys, but he pretty much says that all the early talk was contract issues, which there were, and he doesn't say numbers, but he heavily implies that they offered him less than he was expecting, maybe because they wanted to give Kismet the bump up, which is also the rumor, but he says that they could have resolved that. That was, you know, they were going through, it was obviously less than he wanted, but there was some wiggle room, and maybe they could have found a way to make it work, and it certainly seems like they should have and could have done if they wanted to stay together, but they clearly didn't.
No, yeah, so basically after I came back from champs, I thought everything was fine, and then New York kind of, you know, came back to me with a contract, and I was kind of like confused about it. I'm not going to go into numbers or anything, but basically the contract they sent, I wasn't really like happy with, I guess, or like I wasn't really expecting it. So I was in like negotiations with them for a little bit. And eventually, a lot of people thought the contract just fell through, but eventually the team just ended up deciding they wanted to go a different direction. So it wasn't due to a contract issue. We would have eventually figured that out, but it was just the decision on the team. I don't know exactly how the conversation went or whatnot.
Do you still friends with like Paco and Caesar and kids and just accept it's just a piece of the business, or are you like kind of a little bit not on cool terms with them right now?
It's a weird situation because I was pretty close with all the guys. Like, I mean, I had a fun time. I had a good year. Like, I enjoyed my time there. I had no bad blood with any of them, but it's a weird situation because it just felt so random to me, and I didn't understand why, and no one gave me an explanation why. No one really talked to me about it. Like, if I could have done something different, you know what I mean? Like, there was no conversation. So it's like, for me, like, I don't know, it just kind of hit a weird spot for me. It's like, I like all the boys on the team, but at the same time, like, I don't know, it just felt like I got backstabbed in a way, almost. I don't know.
It's a very interesting perspective there on Priestah's side of the story here, and discussing how the contract wasn't really that big of a deal. He was actually quite, because there's been some accusations to Priestahh like, oh, you know, you thought you were worth way more money than you were, and therefore, like, you know, you deserve to get dropped or something like this. But it seems like Priestahh was actually kind of willing to take a salary deduction or whatever the case was to play with these guys again. Teammates that he seemed very happy with, and you can understand why he'd want to team with them again, given the supposedly great culture they have there internally. And goes on to use the word backstab. Right? He says, yeah, it feels like, given the lack of communication from the Subliners guys towards Priestahh, feels like he got done dirty really here, that he thought he was going to stay. Now, will it work out terribly for Priestahh, given the team that he's forming elsewhere, and the rivalry that is going to be probably pretty spectacular, hopefully at least, between those two teams, because New York might end up being the, one of the weaker teams of the top 4, and Boston might well be the strongest outside of that. And this is what Octane kind of said all along, right? During the whole saga, Octane was saying, well, if they really wanted him, they would have found a way to make it work contractually. So Octane's opinion was, and he's obviously been experienced this from probably both sides of the coin during his career, if they wanted Priestahh, they would have kept him. And so his opinion was they clearly didn't really want to keep him around. They thought they could upgrade. But they weren't necessarily telling this whole truth to Priestahh. Like, he clearly didn't have as much communication from his teammates and from the organization that he would have wanted. And it especially feels a little bit weird, does it not, when you then look back based on what Priestahh has said on tweets like this, because you look at all the tweets that the Subliners guys did when Priestahh was dropped are nothing but the best, never forget all this great times we had, love you bro at Priestahh, and even we had Kismet in Method's chat here saying, people don't understand every angle, all I say about those statements, I love Preston, we all do. And the implication of this was, you would think at the time, that, oh, it was just contractual, there's nothing we could do about it, love you bro, but it couldn't work out for the salaries or whatever. But Priestahh saying, no, you guys wanted to drop me, so you can't come out on Twitter and say all this lovey-dovey stuff when actually you guys made the call to get rid of me. So that at least is how it seems to me. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, depending on how much you like drama in COD, this isn't a particularly rare thing. These things happen every so often, but very rarely with the World Championship winners, it's got to be said. And just to remind you guys that when I tweeted this out on July the 19th, Priestahh put it in his Twitter likes, kind of implying that, he's also looking forward to potentially getting some revenge on those guys next season. Boston versus New York has been considered, I don't know, some people consider it to be a bit of a forced sports rivalry, which is maybe justified, maybe not, but there is actually going to be a legitimate rivalry there between the two cities next season. But I guess what we want to know is this actually going to work out for the best for Subliners? Because theoretically, they should be a better team than Boston with Sasha, Priestahh, Snoopy +1. We don't know the fourth as of yet. People have kind of thought about Capsidal, right? And that might be a good idea, given that he hasn't really been rumoured to other teams that you thought he might have done. So that's a possibility. But Sib is going to be the man coming in instead. Did a great job on Seattle, certainly year one. This past season, I don't think was quite so impressive, but definitely a damage dealer, definitely got high upside. But Priestahh dropped to 1.02 for the Subliners, and given what Skyz does, Skyz a pretty underrated AR as far as I'm concerned, those performances from Priestahh were pretty much what you'd expect. And maybe they think that, well, we need to upgrade the firepower even further. But if HyDra's going to drop a 1.2, which is probably not all the time, but, in theory, if you're looking at the way your team is going to be set up there, they don't necessarily need way more slaying power on the AR side. Maybe they feel like they do. And this team with Sib, as and when it's confirmed, probably does have, maybe even you could say, a higher ceiling than the team with Priestahh. But will they have the same consistency? Maybe, maybe not. I would probably incline towards that not being the case, and maybe that's what you need to consistently or to try and win more events with this team. Maybe you just need that higher ceiling because all the other teams around them have upgraded. That's certainly the argument that people are making at the moment. I'm very much intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Just to close out with this, thought was pretty interesting. Of all time, name the COD Pro with the best of all of these factors. Clutch factor, the first name that comes to mind is Karma instantly. Comms, I would say, probably like formal towards like a few years into his career, certainly up there. Gun skill, I would say Scump. IQ, I would probably say Crim6, to be honest, just so that the entire dynasty is represented, which is quite nice. Movement, my first, player that comes to mind was Jerd, but there's definitely other ones out there as well. Movement's an interesting one because it's not just, like, Shotzzy has great movement for sure, but movement, as far as I'm concerned, is also positioning. So I think having a few more varied games that the players have played on a competitive level is interesting there. And then Trash Talk, I mean, maybe you got to give it to Prime Paddy P or Killer or one of the OGs, right? Probably throw Clayster into the mix as well, so he's at least represented here, because I think he deserves it. But very much intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.